work. Bhagavad-gītā compares the fruitive work, which has perpetually shackled the living being to the material world with chains of karma, to a banyan tree, for it is certainly very deeply rooted. As long as we maintain the propensity for enjoying the fruits of our own work, we have to consider that this will continue the transmigration of the soul from one material body to another, according to the nature of our work. The propensity for material enjoyment may be transformed into the desire for serving the mission of the Lord by following the instructions of the esoteric teaching given by the spiritual master. In doing so, one's ordinary activity or karma is changed into karma yoga, by which one can attain spiritual perfection while engaging in the same work for which he has a natural tendency. When the result of all fruitive work and other service is dovetailed with devotional service to the Lord, it ceases to generate further karma and gradually develops into transcendental devotional service. This karma yoga will not only completely cut off the root of the banyan tree of work, or karma, but will also carry the performer to the lotus feet of the Lord in the spiritual world, where he will attain a perfect spiritual body to continue his service to the Lord eternally. The path of real spiritual advancement, therefore, begins from seeking the association of pure devotees, who are not only learned in Vedanta, but are also self-realized souls and unalloyed devotees of Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that association, the neophyte devotee must render loving service physically and mentally without reservation. This service attitude will induce the great souls to be more favorable in bestowing their mercy, which injects the neophyte with all the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees. Ahinsaya paramahangsya charyaya smritya mukunda charitagriya siddhuna yamair akamair niyamaischa panindaya nirihaya dvandva tikshaya cha. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles of spiritual life without material desire, and, while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 4:22-24. Gradually, this service attitude develops into a strong attachment to hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which makes the candidate able to understand the constitutional position of the soul in relation to the gross and subtle bodies. Then, when he gives up the attachment to the gross and subtle bodies, he realizes the knowledge of pure spiritual existence and experiences his eternal relationship with the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After one's rasa, or eternal relationship with the Lord, is ascertained by deep experience of self-realization and spontaneous love, pure devotional service to the Lord begins, gradually developing into perfect knowledge of the personality of Godhead beyond the purview of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. Yada rahitam atmanam bhutendriya gunasayahi svarupena mayopetam pasyan sarvajayamritchati. When you are free from the conception of gross and subtle bodies, and when your senses are free from all influence of the modes of material nature, you will realize your pure form in my association. At that time, you will be situated in pure consciousness. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 3:9-33. By such Purushottama Yoga, as it is stated in the Bhagavad-gītā, one is made perfect even during the present bodily existence, and one exhibits all the good qualities of the Lord to the highest percentage. This path of the esoteric teaching is the gradual development of self-realization by association of pure devotees, And it all begins from accepting a bona fide spiritual master and carefully following his instructions with a nice service attitude. So in the material world, everyone is afraid to be a servant. Everyone wants to be a master, because we all see how in material consciousness the servants are maltreated. But in spiritual consciousness, it's not like that. In spiritual consciousness, we serve the Lord out of spiritual love for him, because we appreciate his wonderful qualities and his unconditional eternal love for us. After all, God created this world. He created us as well. And he supplies the sunshine, the heat, the water, the food. Everything is supplied by the Lord that we require for our existence. And he doesn't demand anything from us at all. He gives us complete freedom, free will. And mostly we misuse our freedom, and we perform activities to try to become the master, which creates karma for us, which then brings us back into this material world again and again to have to experience the result. So the secret of spiritual life is to take the same activities that we've been doing in this material world, and instead of doing them for our own gain or our own benefit, we offer them to the Supreme Lord in service. For example, I used to be a musician, but just a few days ago we had our Gaur Purnima festival, the annual celebration of the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I found myself leading a whole series of chants during one of the ceremonies that we performed. So I was playing the harmonium and singing and using all my musical training to enthuse the devotees in spiritual consciousness, and that was very rewarding. As I've mentioned before, as soon as we do something that is pleasurable to the Supreme Lord, he responds from within our hearts, and we get this loving ecstasy that cannot be compared with anything else in the world. This is called bhava, or spiritual emotion. So when we become self-realized, we discover the particular spiritual emotion that we aesthetically favor the most. And generally these are in 5 categories called neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. One of those 5 categories will turn out to be what just pleases us the most. And we can do that kind of service eternally in the spiritual world, and this will give us unending pleasure, unending enjoyment. The problem with this material world is that everything changes. Nothing is permanent. So just as soon as we set up a situation where we get to experience the kind of feelings that we like, boom, time takes it away from us. Not like that in the spiritual world. Our relationship with Kṛṣṇa there is eternal. So once we attain this spiritual consciousness, we can stay in the kind of relationship that we prize the most eternally and experience the nectar of rasa, or spiritual relationship with the Lord. This spiritual love is based on service. And as Lord Chaitanya said, this service attitude is the form of our eternal existence in the spiritual world. In other words, the service attitude isn't just a nice thing that helps us in spiritual life. It is the essence of spiritual life and the form of our perfect body. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of My Perfect Body. This is David Hughes, your host, reminding you to visit us on the web at esotericteaching.org, where you can purchase the complete Esoteric Teaching Introductory Seminar DVD and many CDs of transcendental music and mantras.